Hi everyone, I just wanted to break into your evening just for a quick minute to talk about a news update that just came out, and I'm not sure if you know about it or not. Maybe you already do, but one of the worst power outages, blackouts in history is kind of happening right now in Pakistan. There's over 200 million people without power right now, which is really significant. That's just horrifying. And I think about what if that happened here in America. That's partly why I've talked about in videos about what are you going to do if the power goes out. That's why I talk about the importance of being prepared for different situations that come up. You know, I talk about, using things like a flashlight. I mean, you can use something like the Maglite Mini or a regular large flashlight. Have an Olight, which if you watch the Sensible Prepper channel, he talks about a variety of different flashlights, and he's really good in that subject. He's very good with tactical things. For me, I have the Maglite Mini because it's easy to carry with me anywhere I may need it. I have this one, which is a hand crank flashlight, and if you're able to handle that, it works really well. It doesn't use any batteries, so you never have to worry about getting batteries or whatever. You can crank it up. If you're able to manually deal with the cranking of it, you can use it to charge up your cell phone, provided there's no EMP, because I don't know that the cell phone will work after that. You know, can have a Faraday cage, but I don't know if that will work after that. It has a radio on there, and it even has an emergency beacon on there. And I paid almost $3 for this. Good deal. I don't know if you can get it for $3 anymore because that was quite some years ago, but that's a good deal. And then I also have an emergency weather radio. It does regular radio stations and it does weather radio, and it's a hand crank deal. You don't have to deal with the batteries and that, and I paid $3 for that as well. That's the reason why I get that kind of stuff, not trying to fearmonger or anything, but just really seriously think that people should try to be prepared. If you've watched any of my old videos, then you'd see where I talk about when I had moved, and the place that I had moved to, I was so excited and happy and got moved in, and within 2 days a storm came and a big tree fell down and knocked all the power out for many blocks, and I was in a city that I had not lived in before. And it was kind of a panic because the little food that I had was all in the freezer, and it went bad very quickly. You keep the door closed, it'll stay okay for a little while, but eventually you're going to want something to eat, or you're going to want some water to drink or whatever. That's why it's important to have some extra water stored up, and you can have bottled water, extra, those camping containers that hold extra water, you could do that. Some people will buy like the big Berkey or other things. That way, if they use the water that's out of the faucet, it will filter out most of the gunk that might show up in the water when there is no electricity. Because that there's a lot of things that electricity controls, not just the lights. It does help those plants work so that you can have fresh water and have other things working. And for people that are on life support of any kind, or use a CPAP, or if they have a nebulizer because if they have asthma or whatever, or if they're in the hospital, there's all kinds of different situations that cause people to need electricity. I just wanted to break in for that minute and tell you about what's happening in Pakistan, and please, please, please store a little bit back for yourself. Try to be prepared. The government here says that people should be prepared in America with 3 days worth of food. First they were saying 3 days, and then they were saying 2 weeks. 2 weeks is good. Like if you are quarantined from the virus or whatever, that's a good thing to have. But it's really better to take it up another notch. Have a longer amount of food. Of course, have what you can eat right away then, but also store up some things that are dehydrated. Dehydrate some onions. Check out my old videos on that. Some dried beans, vegetables, other tangible stuff that you can use in the event of an emergency. Because if the power is out, what do you think you're going to get at the store? Nothing. If the power is out, what do you think you're going to get at the gas station? Nothing. You need to have a backup plan for those kinds of things, because that was the situation that I was in during that storm many years ago. There were actually a couple of storms. The first one was straight line winds that put the power out for 2 weeks, and I had to become very creative with what I had left over after all my food in the refrigerator went bad. The second one was a tornado, and that's a whole nother situation, and we could talk about that on a future video. But I just wanted to break in to talk about that a little bit. Check out your cupboards, do a little surveying for yourself, and see what do you have in case there is an emergency that you can have, and you can be sure that you would have, that you could be able to use. And we can talk about that more. We'll talk about how you can dehydrate those things. I mean, not everybody wants to keep a lot of dehydrated stuff, but I tell you, having a little bit set aside does not hurt. And if you're not comfortable with doing the dehydrating or following, the tips that I show you when I dehydrate things on the channel, then there are always places like Provident Pantry, Emergency Essentials, places like that where you can order like an emergency case of dehydrated food or something, so that you have a little something extra that's set aside. The one drawback with some of those things is, two drawbacks. Number one, they're kind of spendy. It's convenient, but it's spendy, and it comes in a big bucket kind of a deal. And I can show you more about that later. But I'm not knocking it, because it is a good thing to have in an emergency, and it's easy to store and put aside. Second thing, super, super, super dense in calories. So that's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, we're going to make this meal and we're going to split it up between the three of us or whatever, and we're going to eat this, and we're going to have to go all day on what we just had that one time, in which that works for some people. But if you're looking for something to eat every day on the regular, that's not the best way to do it, unless you're really trying to gain some weight. But there are lots of options out there. And as I said, there's things that we could do to dehydrate things, dehydrate things that way you can just toss it in a crock pot, and with a little water that you have, reconstitute everything, bam, you've got a meal. You can use the Instapot, you can use air fryers, you can use a variety of things. Well, with the air fryer, it's going to be more for the things that are frozen. But you can bring those things back to life that were dehydrated, and not feel like you've lost out on a whole lot of stuff. But I hope you guys have a good night, and I'll be talking to you again soon. And just do a little survey, see what you have, and make note of what kind of things you think you might need. Not trying to fearmonger, not trying to cause anyone to be panicking or feeling pressured or whatever, but we have to look around us to see what's going on around the world, and recognize that those same things can be happening to us too. We don't know when that may happen to us, but it's better to be prepared than not to be prepared, because if you're not prepared, you're going to be in a difficult situation. But you have a good night, and I'll talk to you again soon.